I'm Solar Nick, owner of the Solar Scouts, here with a couple of our homeowners, Randy and Colleen. We're right on Cedar Creek Reservoir, right? No.
Richland Chambers.
Richland Chambers Lake, somewhere beautiful in Texas. We recently installed a solar and N-phase battery system for Randy and Colleen. And what initially interested you all, or how long have you been interested in solar in general?
I was originally interested in a generator, but my neighbor has one. When the power goes off, it comes on. One day I was home and we had a storm. We lost our power. I didn't hear his generator. His starter battery had gone out. I travel for my company. If I'm on the road and that happened, it'd just drive me nuts, so then we started looking into solar. So
You would drive him nuts because he knows I couldn't fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah. The backup thing was really, really important to us because we get storms out here and the power might be out for 3 or 4 days. I mean, it's not any fun. We have precious meat in the freezer and just things like that.
Do you hunt or fish?
Yep.
Hunt and fish, yeah. So, Randy, you are in sales for a trailer company, right?
Correct.
And so you're traveling throughout the state, and your concern initially was, in the event of a power outage, if you're not here, a backup generator has some nuances to it, and if it weren't there at the ready, then Colleen would be stranded.
Absolutely.
So that'd be no bueno. Okay.
Nor could she start up the generator they have in the garage to take care of the refrigerator, freezers, that type of thing.
Portable generator.
Yep.
What, in terms of what you want to back up, what are the most important things to keep on even if the grid goes down?
The longest time we were without power was in the winter. We have a wood-burning stove that's more than adequate to bake us out of here. So heat was not a problem, but lights were, refrigerators, that type of thing. Freezers.
Yeah. Freezers.
Yeah. So
Coffee.
that was important.
He would hook up the generator for coffee.
I did.
Priorities.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yep.
Yeah, a good cup of coffee will warm you up in the winter months too.
And actually, also the Wi-Fi. That's important for us too. And with his business, it was important, and important for me for other reasons, but that was important, and that wouldn't come with the generator. So.
No, but that's not electric, doesn't.
Once the power goes out, it's done.
Well, that makes a lot of sense. Keeping the communication devices up and running, both for, in your instance, revenue generating. If a client's reaching out to you, hey, I need a gooseneck trailer or whatever it is, you can be more responsive even if the grid's down, and then communicating with family, friends, hey, we're okay, that type of stuff. That makes sense. How long has your neighbor had his generator?
The individual that built that house put the generator in. So it's been there, 12, 10
or 12 years.
It's a slick system, but you need to check the battery.
Absolutely.
Put a battery buddy on it, something like that.
You have to have propane, and we are an all-electric house. So that was another reason that he started looking at the solar, when he didn't realize we'd have to add, to get the generator for the whole house, we'd have to get a propane tank. And
smart. What was your concern about a propane tank? Is it the unsightliness, or is it just an added cost in addition to, or?
Well, it was added cost, but we don't have any propane hookups, so there have been a lot of digging, to run the tube, and the tank, that wouldn't be that big of a deal as far as putting it somewhere. It could sit over where our boat's parked in the winter, so in that area. But
it's ugly.
Yeah, and
It's ugly, yeah.
It was
white tank just in the yard, yeah. Yeah, and a lot of the code requirements want you to place a propane tank at least 10 feet away from the structure, so it's gotta be an island in the middle of the yard somewhere, taking up some other space. So was it about 10 or 12 years ago that y'all started thinking about backup power, or more recently?
Just a couple of years ago.
A couple years ago?
Because we've been here for 25 years and the power didn't go out. If it did, it was like momentarily. So, which was amazing. But the more people that moved in, the longer the power would be out, the more damage there would be, more trees coming down during the storms. And so we would be out. I mean, a day is bad enough, but when it ended up being 3 days, it's scary. It's scary. I guess that's the best way to put it. And
Yeah.
we like to be secure.
In the summertime, when it goes out, it's usually for a couple hours or so. In the winter, we'd never experienced the snow down here before. Neither had anybody else, so it took a long time to get things going.
Yeah. And is that the February 2021?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, that would probably be when it first.
Yep.
And honestly, we have good neighbors, and they let us come over and take showers and do some things like that. But
Wow.
it's just not the way you want to live. And
No, that definitely can be scary if the power's out and there's not a really well-defined
right,
timeline for when it'll get back up. There's just a lot of insecurity and I'm sure anxiety around that.
There were a lot of wires down because the branches falling all over the place.
and their answer was always, "Yes, we know,
Yeah.
but we'll get there as soon as we can."
And I'm sure those trees over a decade have grown taller and thereby more susceptible to
Metals.
weight from ice or wind, knocking that type of stuff over, and creates a little less security. And then, of course, more people moving to the area. Now the co-op has to service a greater population, more sites. And so there's a greater demand on that utility company to get everybody back up and running.
That's true.
And so someone or a home like this, I don't know, are we on like a peninsula or something here, that it's a little isolated.
It is a little isolated.
And so if there's a lesser population here, then they might be focused on a higher population center because maybe there's 1,000 homes there versus 100 homes here impacted by something like that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you started getting really interested in backup power just a couple years ago, and looking into generators, propane tanks, some pros and cons there, and then looking at the battery. How did you find the solar scouts?
You did.
We looked at you looked at a couple of other different
Right.
options, solar, but different companies, and but most of them were just solar power. Where we really wanted the backup was important to us. And I was listening to a Christian radio show, and they had an advertisement, and so I went to the website and put my name in, and or they contact.
And here you are.
Here we are. That's awesome. Great. So y'all heard it on the radio. You called in, submitted your information, and then one of our team members likely reached out to you. It might have been me, could have been somebody else, and then I know for sure you and I did a Zoom call and chatted about it. I think we did a couple of different Zoom calls, right?
Mhm.
And when we were looking into it, I recall we were looking at a few different options in terms of how to implement it. We heard and knew that you needed a backup power solution, but there were a few different ways to go about implementing. And so I'm going to open it up to y'all first. I want to hear it from your words, then I might help guide that a little bit also. But how did we end up landing on the way to install it or fund the system?
The way to fund the system? Well, that was a no-brainer. It's our age, to be perfectly honest. Part of it is our age.
Sure.
And if Randy retires, that means that we're going to have less, excess money to spend, and our electric bill doubled in a year.
Oh, wow.
And I was on budget, but it doubled, and so it was.
And that was before going solar.
Oh yeah,
Correct.
Solar, the electric bill doubled.
Absolutely.
Overnight more.
Yes, it did. And I called them, and they said, well, because I said my chart shows I'm not using anything more than we did the year before.
Wow.
And they said, well, it's the cost of the electricity. So So that was really important to us, that we didn't have to make a monthly payment to our electric company. So we didn't want to make a monthly payment to y'all. So that was part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And our house was paid for, so we didn't have a mortgage. We don't have debts. When we look at, we have 6 kids, and they're all successful. So they don't need anything from us.
Wow.
And so we decided that we would do the financing this way, so that when the house is sold, it's just part of it. And it comes out of there, and it pays back the investors, and we're free and clear. So that was why we did it.
Very cool. So that's not unique to y'all, that the utility company is increasing their rates.
Oh, no.
That's rampant throughout the entire state. And really, that February 2021 snowstorm spurred a lot of that rate increase. As we understand it, one of the large co-ops that most of the state's co-ops purchase through, a co-op for the co-ops, ended up having to declare bankruptcy after that February 2021 snowstorm.
Wow.
And so that, really eliminated the price protection that the Navarro County co-ops of the world were able to get at really low rates. And so now all of a sudden they're more impacted by the wholesale prices of electricity. Then you got other stuff where in the state of Texas, at that time, 60% of our power is produced by coal and natural gas fired plants. And then when we were shopping the different options of who's going to fund or finance this system, we looked at 2 different choices. Really, was a traditional solar plan where we work with distributed generation utility companies. They will fund or finance these projects, and then there's a monthly payment set up. We work also with, and who you all chose to go with, was more of a mortgage style product. However, it was not a refinance. It was not a home equity line of credit. It was not a home equity loan. Instead, it was a home equity investment. And so because y'all were and are so diligent throughout your lives to pay off your home, you were able to leverage the equity in the home to have an investor come in and say, look, I'm betting that this home on Richland Chambers Lake in 10 years is going to be more valuable than it is today. With the growth in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, this is a short jaunt for those in Highland Park and other places. And so eventually, because you're not planning to, your kids don't need to move in here eventually or anything like that, it could turn into somebody else's lake house weekend getaway, or I hate to say it, but a short-term rental or something like that. And so, so because of that, there's no recurring monthly solar bill.
Yo.
So the function of this system serves 2 purposes. One, from the power that we're producing, which we set it up to overproduce relative to what you use. And with the batteries will do self-consumption. So that means your system is working during the day. Like right now, it's a bright sunny day outside. The homes run off of the solar. The solar's recharging the batteries. At night, your home will use the power from the batteries. We've got 20 kilowatt hours of storage in the garage. And then the next day, the cycle starts back over. So you're rarely, if ever, even using electricity from the co-op.
Right.
Very little. Very little. I love it. And then, of course, the batteries are smart, which we looked at the other day just over the phone, where it's accessing the National Weather Service data. So in the event of inclement weather incoming, the battery will automatically transition itself to a backup power mode. So that way it keeps itself at a 100% charge. So if the power goes down, you automatically have electricity still in the batteries.
Yep.
Randy likes that app.
You like the app?
Yeah, I like the app, period. So it's interesting seeing how much electricity that we're selling to Navarro County.
Very cool. Very cool. And Navarro County does avoided cost delivery, which is a unique way to trade electricity. It basically means that what you produce and what you sell to them, you're selling it to them at more or less a wholesale price.
Sure.
Whereas if you were to use power from Navarro, they're going to sell it to you at retail.
Right.
Somebody could go solar without batteries in this co-op. It just may not be as advantageous as with the batteries.
Right.
Just because it's basically a half price trade. You got to buy it for 15 cents and they're only buying it from you for 7 cents, give or take.
Okay.
So
It works.
that's awesome. Have y'all gotten a Navarro County electric bill since going solar?
Just for a half month.
Yes, it was just for, it was not quite half of what we've been paying.
Okay.
So we'll see what this next month's bill is.
Awesome. Yeah, when that comes in, shoot me a text. I'd love to get a PDF or just a photocopy
No
of
problem.
that. Could you describe the installation process? So after we, got everything determined in terms of what the best strategy for doing it was, then it obviously took a little while to get all the permits and permissions. Walk me through that length of process and then how long it took to install. And
Do you want me to tell them that I walked up to that roof and put every one of those panels in? I didn't.
No, we muted.
It went pretty smooth. Of course, the thing was all laid out before. Wasn't too much of a hassle until we tried to fire it up. But
And the young men that put the solar panels on, in fact, one of them had to go up in the attic. I don't know how he stood it.
he was up there a long time.
Yeah, and it was hot. They did a super job. If they're your employees, they did a wonderful job. They were done in no time, or I thought, for all the number of panels that they put up. And they cleaned up after themselves, and that was important.
Wow.
They went around the grounds and cleaned up anything that fell on the ground. I think I found one thing on the driveway, and that was it. So that went very smooth. Then, did the electrical people come later or before? I can't remember. I guess they all came at kind of the same time.
about the same time, yep.
And the electrical people, they didn't. They weren't intrusive at all, and we had to be down, a couple of times, but not real long.
Not long.
So that was also, they were very considerate about that, making sure that it wasn't I wasn't right in the middle of doing something. So that was good also. Yeah.
Yeah, so when we install a battery, to connect that into the home system, we have to shut the power off for a little bit. And so that was intermittent, maybe 30, 45 minutes at a time.
No, not much more than that. I think one time there was one that was 2 hours, and he told us ahead of time that it was going to be, so it was fine.
Perfect.
Yeah.
And then I know on this job, there was a little bit of a hiccup.
Yeah.
And it, obviously we're looking at this in retrospect, so we know everything that happened. But it was a part within the battery or the controller, and it was a manufacturer issue. Talk to me a little bit about, what happened, what you were feeling when that happened, and then how we resolved it or how we worked together, and what you feel after that resolution.
So I'll me too.
Well, basically,
We can take the mean side too.
it wiped out one of our refrigerators and my Keurig coffee maker, and I think it was the garage light. It wiped that out, and y'all took care of that. Sent us a check to cover the replacement costs, and that went fine. And then when they came back to check it, and I think you had a factory representative with them that second time, it started to do the same thing. Only he could hear something and he started flipping breakers like crazy. So we didn't lose anything that time, but they discovered where the problem was. Where when the electrician that was out there might not have been able to recognize that noise the first time. So he didn't do anything wrong. It's just that this guy knew something was going to happen by the noise that was coming out of that big box out in front.
They were trying. This is when they were trying to hook the system to our breakers. I don't know what that name is, what that's called. And I heard two pops, and then as I was coming around the corner, I heard a very large pop, and the refrigerator went, and there was a flash. And so we knew something happened, and the electrician did too. He just couldn't figure out what it was, and it wasn't until later that evening he went, okay, my refrigerator is dead. So, but you did take care of it, and we appreciate that. You were very conscientious by getting that done, because refrigerators are expensive nowadays, and they don't last forever anyway. So that was important that you followed up on that, and we didn't care about the coffee maker.
Yes, we did.
You cared about the coffee.
The good news was we were heading to our son's lake house, and so we stopped and bought a Ninja coffee maker. Actually, he wanted one too, so we bought one for him. Took that down. Took that down, came back, hooked that back up. Everything was fine.
And so it worked fine after they got the new, I don't know if it was a new part or what it was, but after they got the new one, and so of course we didn't get, that's why we have the half a month bill. It's because it wasn't hooked up when you anticipated for it to do so.
Yeah.
But then when they got the new part and it's run smoothly ever since.
The Vero came out, I don't know if I told you that, they thought there was something with their meter, wasn't reading right.
Oh,
That was just recently, right?
Yeah. And so they were going to put a new meter in it, and this kid got up, he checked things up top, and that's where the power goes in. There's a pole that goes up there, and came down, and he looked at it, he said, put the thing right back in, and down the road they went.
yeah.
Yeah, thanks to the self-consumption mode of the batteries, they're like, these people are not using electricity during the day or at night.
Yeah.
That is way odd. Our meter must be wrong here. Even though they reviewed the engineering plans, approved the engineering plans, inspected the system afterwards, they still were a little perplexed by that. So, but yeah, definitely it did not go as smoothly in the initial setup that we normally like. It was a component within the load controller, and so that load controller is what the batteries will back up in the event of an outage. And so because we were moving the refrigerator circuit to there, some of those other things, that's why when whatever the component was broke or faulted out, why we saw some issues and frying of those appliances. And thankfully, the manufacturer knew that was an issue. I forget how many, but it's like 1 in 1,000, 1 in 2,000 of those parts have that issue. And so they made it right really quickly. Thankfully for us as well, I didn't have to come out of pocket for that. The manufacturer made that right.
That was
cool. I mean, I think we have pretty much covered a lot of everything. You know, what tips or advice would you have for someone else considering solar, or even somebody that thinks that their electric bills are too high?
I would tell them not to tell your wife that she needs to get up on the roof with a Swiffer to get the dust off the panels. You know,
our neighbor thought that we'd have to clean the panels off.
Oh, and so what have you found? What is the maintenance requirements for your system?
we haven't done anything.
Nothing.
Hands free.
Yeah.
But one of the things I did, there's a lady down the road who has solar. She doesn't have very many panels on it, and she's had it for quite a while. And so I stopped to ask her before we ever contacted you what she would do different, and she has Enphase. And it's been there several years, but she said, no one asked me what I wanted hooked up. And they just hooked up what they thought was essential. And so some of it to her was not essential. And
she has batteries also?
She has batteries also, yes. And she, at the time, Navera wasn't giving her any credit, but she said that they'd contacted her and said that they're in the process getting some kind of system, and you probably know what that is now. So but it gave me some insight into, okay, what do I want hooked up, so that when the electrician said, do you want this, what do you want? I knew what I wanted. Some of it he still didn't let me, but like the water heater, but
Really?
But everything else made sense, because some things just take too much of it. I don't know why I use it as one of them. So if we'd been off several days, it made sense. But like she said, she goes, I can't watch TV. My Wi-Fi's out. She says, because that power to that is not there. And she goes, I wish I would have had them do that. And so I would suggest that to anyone. Think about it before they ever get out. What is it you want hooked up? And be prepared that some of the things that you might want, it might not be feasible just because it takes a lot of electricity. But most everything is going to be fine. We're going to be quite fine. Like Randy said, we have a wood stove, so in the wintertime we're warm, and we grew up without air conditioning, so we can handle that in the summertime if that's an issue too. So that would be mine. I don't know what Randy would suggest, but that would be mine.
Oh, that's good.
Definitely recommend the solar system to anyone who lives in a rural area where you're subject to outages during stormy weather. And there are storms in Texas that just can cause all kinds of grief. And so I'd recommend it to all of our neighbors that they don't want to be without electricity. This is a much better way to go.
You contact Solar Scouts.
And contact Solar Scouts. There you go. Okay.
Uh-huh.
I love it. Thank you.
We're very happy about it. Yeah.
Well, we're thrilled that you're happy about it.
Yeah.
So yeah, anytime anybody's asking you questions, or feel free to give them my number or a group text or something, and we'd be happy to see if it makes sense for them as well.
It is.
Yep.
The one question we get, and it just irritates me, don't put that on there. But before they even ask how it works or what you do, they say, how much did it cost? And so Randy and I have a really good answer. And he did it. He gave it to you earlier. And it's basically, our kids can take care of themselves. They're more successful than we are. And so we just decided to make this investment so that we wouldn't be without electricity for the rest of our life.
Yep, we're just stealing some of their inheritance.
That's all right.
Yeah, that's right.
And you're absolutely right. It's going to provide additional security while you're here. And thankfully, because obviously y'all did a fantastic job raising your kids, set them up for success, and now they've fulfilled that destiny, if you will, of obviously they've had to put in hard work as well. And so
they've exceeded our expectations, haven't they?
I love the app on my phone. I can be in El Paso and see what's going to happen. I don't leave that storm watch on all the time, but when I see that there's going to be 2-3 days and I'm out, I click that thing on, and I just want to make sure she has electricity till I get back.
That's perfect. Yeah, it can be a little bit sensitive. Like right now, there very well could still be a flood warning out due to the high rains, and because of that, it would have automatically toggled itself to backup mode.
Yeah.
But the fact that you're in there on a daily basis, making sure, and you're weather aware, which we all ought to be anyhow, means you can.
Yeah, any warning from the National Weather Service. Okay, so about that.
Yeah.
So that's things.
And the floodwater here isn't going to get up that high, and that's something with me. So.
And the app is simple to use?
Yeah.
What's your favorite bit of information that you look at on there?
I just check the main screen most of the time. And see how little electricity that we're using from the barrel, see how much we're selling back to. It was tickles.
But it'll.
The other thing is that one of the panels was out.
Yeah.
And you saw that. So that.
I think Nick told me that first.
I'm sorry. I thought it was on the app.
When you get into the array section, you can see all the panels. And that panel, in the daytime, all the other panels are blue. and that panel is gray, or black. But it's not the same as I think we have 37 panels up there.
There's a lot of
That's
Perfect. And we do have a plan of attack. He asked if 1 to 2 o'clock today would be a good, I think today, it's either today or tomorrow, to get that replacement inverter up there. So should be at most 26 hours out.
Short.
it's still working.
It's effective.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
They're still producing a lot of electricity.
And that's the beauty of the microinverter product, because when one thing fails, everything else stays up and running, versus other types of inverters. If one thing goes out, then the whole system goes down. So
It's sweet. It's a great system. We're just tickled with it.